Every day, you essentially pay your dues by doing the harder thing when it's the right thing to do.
Thinking back to when I was quite a bit of a younger coach, you know, all I wanted to do was coach elite gymnastics. You know, that's what we want to do. And, you know, I was forced to sort of try recreational and preschool gymnastics, special needs gymnastics, birthday parties, you name it. I did it at the time, but actually looking back on that now, was kind of like, you know, how I kind of learned my trade. And I guess that you know, working with sort of different groups of individuals and different abilities, that you kind of adapt and you learn to pick up these tools as a coach. And then, you know, that stands you in quite good stead in the future. Quite fortunate now that, you know, I do really only coach sort of elite higher level gymnastics. But, you know, those years that sort of led me up until this point are, you know, really, really valuable to me. And I don't think I'd be here now without it, to be honest. So it's really, really important. And I think being visual in anything acrobatic is vital. So in the case of being on a trampoline, where we would obviously start the twisting, you know, if we've got a trampoline, we'll start it there. It's key for me that when they're taking off, that their eyes are forward, their head is in a neutral position. You know, we know that if they lift their head up really quick when they take off, they're going to increase their rotation, lose their awareness in the air, and then, you know, all sorts of problems can happen after that. So yeah, being really visual on takeoff is really important. But I also think it's important to be visual at the end of a skill as well, especially things like double somersaults. I think if they've got the ability to kind of spot the floor almost on the way down, even if that is subconsciously, like you say, you know, a lot of gymnasts won't be able to see anything, but subconsciously, if their head is in that position, they're trying to look for a certain reference point, then landing and things like that become a lot better. And, you know, we want our gymnasts to be as powerful as possible when they're taking off, but we obviously want them to be in control all of the time. So, you know, for me, being visual and that head position is vital. I think one important thing for me is segmentation. So being able to take a skill and break it down to as many sort of micro segments as possible. And like you say, linking your preparation, your physical preparation exercises, your actual technical progressions to that one part of the skill that you're looking at is the way to look into skills in complete detail and really produce something technically brilliant. But I think also with, you know, obviously gymnasts get a lot of problems, like sort of aerial problems, you know, in acrobatics, we know that. But I think if you've taken that sort of segmented approach to the way that you've taught a skill, then you've got a number of sort of stages that you can fall back on without having to go right the way back to the start, you know. So you've built this skill up progressively in multiple different stages. And, you know, you might encounter a slight twisting problem or whatever, but often you only need to go back one or two stages, and then, you know, that might be enough just to kind of reinforce what they already know, what they've already learned, and it's kind of just twigged in their head again, and kind of off they go. But I think if you skip some of those stages and you kind of rush, we all get gymnasts that come along every now and again that are immensely talented, that can pick up things really quick. But it's not to say that those stages should be missed, because, you know, it's their sort of their safety net, if you like. If things go wrong, then they've got a few stages to fall back on without, you know, starting from scratch. So I think a basic somersault should never be underestimated. I think, you know, we've just discussed about play, and I think it's important that they play as they're developing their acrobatic skills and their twisting awareness and all of that kind of stuff. But going back to that basic somersault is absolutely key for me. Head position, making sure that they understand a neutral head position when they're taking off, a stiff body, arm position, all of those kind of things that need to be repeated, you know, many times for them to understand exactly where their body should be. I think a lot of mistakes in twisting, or especially a lot of mistakes in landing, can often be linked straight back to the way that they've taken off. So for me, it's one area that I always focus in on, is how they're leaving the floor or the trampoline or whatever the surface might be. That, you know, this is where you'll find your issues perhaps with landing, is that, you know, it can be traced back to the start of a skill. So for me, after that initial period of sort of playing, that I'll always go back and revisit and sort of consolidate those basics and keep reinforcing, you know, the real technical aspects of the start of a skill. So, you know, we come across different coaches and different characters in our time. And one guy that used to work as part of the GBR program is actually an American coach, Nick Blanton. he said something to me a long time ago that kind of stuck in my head. And, you know, you get these few people that you come across and their little comments stick in your head. And one thing he said to me was, coach the cause, not the effect. So from that point, when I understood exactly what that sort of comment meant, it sort of changed my sort of outlook on a skill completely. You know, and like I said, a lot of things associated with landing mistakes, you can often trace back to the takeoff of a skill. So I'll be looking, you know, I think as coaches, if we can try and learn to look deeper into skills, and we'll find the answers that we're looking for. And, you know, it's not just a case of, oh, you fell over, you need to land on your feet, or you need to, you know, don't take that step at the end. There's always a reason, I think, behind, you know, why there would be a landing mistake. So I think if we can learn to look deeper into skills, then, you know, that's the real sort of technical art, I think, as a coach. And I've seen that in the past, that, you know, they'll just keep repeating the same thing. And, you know, a lot of gymnasts are willing to do that, but like you say, they'll pick up another 10 bad habits along the way. And, you know, it's like we mentioned earlier, that segmentation process of being able to, you know, micro segment every part of the skill, or in twisting terms, every half of the skill, and having the gymnast have that to fall back on. That's their safety net to, you know, because these issues do happen, and, you know, aerial awareness does disappear from time to time. I think it's one thing I've learned over the last few years is it's important to kind of recognize the gymnast growth, the body growth in twisting, because, you know, one day they'll come in and they'll be able to do it. Next day they might have grown a centimeter and everything's gone, you know, and you're the one that has to be there to kind of support that and pick the pieces up for them and help them to rebuild it. You know, it is frustrating. It's frustrating for a coach, but it's a lot more frustrating for an athlete, I'm sure. And, you know, being there to support them with that and go back to these stages is what's going to build them back to where they were, because, you know, ultimately their body can still do it. It's still in there somewhere. It's just them kind of revisiting it and finding that muscle memory, I guess.